Camp of the Stars.
Today is a very special day. Peppa, George, and their friends are preparing for a big adventure, the school camp. Everyone is excited to learn about the stars and enjoy the night outdoors. The children arrived early for this, and everyone is in the courtyard waiting for the transport that will take everyone to the safest place with the best visibility. With colorful backpacks, they can't wait for the trip. Everyone is gathered in a large group. Then Peppa and Pedro say,
I can't wait to set up our tent. Let's play a lot.
Look what I brought. My super binoculars to observe the stars and maybe planets.
And Madame Gazelle said she will teach us about the constellations. I bet they shine a lot.
completed Susie, Peppa's best friend. While the friends chat excitedly, George holds Peppa's hand with a worried look. He carries his backpack but seems hesitant. Noticing her brother's nervousness, Peppa says,
What is it? George, aren't you excited?
I want to go, but what if it gets too dark?
Peppa kneels beside him and smiles lovingly so that he can become more confident and advises.
Don't worry, George. We will all be together. And you know, the night is full of magical things. You will love it.
Madame Gazelle approaches with a big smile, holding a flashlight and a to-do list. The children run to her and she says,
Kids, are you all ready for adventure? Today, we will explore the world of stars. Did you know that each constellation tells a different story?
Stories as if they were fairy tales in heaven.
Exactly, Pedro. And at night, when everything is quiet, we can see how magical the sky is.
The children shout, Yay! While Madame Gazelle points to the school bus, and he starts putting the children inside in an organized manner with the call to leave none behind.
Come on, adventurers. Our bus is ready to take us to camp.
The children enter the bus, singing and talking excitedly. Peppa and George sit together with Pedro and Susie close behind. George still looks a little worried, so Susie says,
Peppa, what do you think we'll see first?
Shooting stars. And maybe even a bunny-shaped constellation.
But what if I don't like the dark?
Peppa takes George's hand again and looks at him with confidence. And he says,
George, you will see how beautiful the night sky is. There is nothing to fear.
The bus heads down the road, passing trees and hills, as the sky begins to take on the orange tones of the sunset. The children sing La 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 together and look out the window, excited by the landscape. And so begins the great adventure of Peppa, George, and their friends. Madame Gazelle prepared everything with care so that the children can have a wonderful experience and learn even more. Meeting the stars. The school bus parks in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. The sky is already starting to turn orange with the sunset. The children get off the bus excitedly, with Madame Gazelle leading the group.
Welcome to Star Camp, kids. Here we will learn something magical about the night sky.
The children look around, curious about the landscape, and full of desire to learn everything about constellations and shooting stars. Intrigued by the know, Susie asks,
Why is it called Camp of the Stars, Madame Gazelle?
Because this is a special place, Susie. Here, away from the city lights, we can see more stars than you can imagine.
The children look up at the sky where the sunset gives way to dark blue, but there are still not many stars visible. Then Pedro says,
I don't see that many stars. Why don't they show up?
Ah, Pedro, this happens because we still have a little sunlight. But when night comes, you will see an incredible show.
The children divide into groups to set up the tents. Peppa and George are together while Pedro and Susie work alongside them.
George, hold that stake for me while I put it in the ground.
Okay, Peppa. But will the dark come soon?
George looks toward the horizon where the light is fading. He looks nervous. To calm down George, Susie Sheep says,
Don't worry, George. When it gets dark, it will be beautiful. You will see the shining stars in the sky, so many you can't even count them.
After setting up their tents, the children gather around the campfire. Madame Gazelle brings a map of the sky and lanterns for everyone.
Before we go to sleep, I want to show you something special. Look at the sky.
The children look up and see the first stars beginning to appear, the glow of lights that could not be seen before.
Wow. It feels like the stars are winking at us, and it has different colors.
The brightness of the stars is very enchanting and has guided several civilizations throughout history.
I can see some up close. But why don't we see so many stars in the city, Madame Gazelle?
Ah, great question, Pedro. This happens because of the city lights. When we have a lot of artificial lights, like street lights and cars, they light up the sky and hide the stars.
So here, in the field, can we see more because there are no lights?
Exactly, Susie. The sky in the countryside is darker, which lets the stars shine with all their strength. And did you know that there are drawings in the sky formed by stars? We call these constellations.
Constellations? What is that?
They are like drawings that ancient people created by connecting the stars. They made up stories to remember where each constellation was.
Madame Gazelle points to a constellation on the map, and then to the sky where it begins to be visible.
For example, there is the constellation Ursa Major. She looks like a big bear in the sky. Can you see her?
The children try to identify the constellation while Madame Gazelle uses a flashlight to help.
I see. It looks like a real bear.
And that one over there, it looks like a triangle.
Well done, Pedro. This is the constellation of Orion, the hunter. It is easy to find because of the 3 stars aligned in the center, which form its belt.
And do all constellations have stories? Wow, how much creativity.
Not to mention that we have to take a lot of time to categorize and create a story for each one.
Yes, Susie, each one has its own story. They were like books in the sky to ancient seafarers and storytellers. Furthermore, Pedro, this is a way for us to connect with our ancestors.
The night progresses, and the stars become even brighter. Madame Gazelle says it's time to sleep. Children enter their shacks, but George is restless.
Peppa, it's really dark in here. What if I can't sleep?
Don't worry, George. The dark only makes the stars more beautiful. If you want, I can call our friends.
George nods, and Peppa leaves to call Susie and Pedro. They appear with flashlights, ready to help. Children are always ready to help a friend in difficult situations.
Don't worry, George. Let's show that the dark is magical, not scary.
Look, George, can you see the dinosaur constellation? It looks like your toy.
George looks up at the sky and sees a constellation that Madame Gazelle points out, explaining that it symbolizes strength and courage.
This constellation represents strength and friendship. When you look at it, you may feel stronger.
George smiles more calmly. He takes his flashlight and starts playing with shadows with his friends.
See, George, when we're together, the dark isn't so scary.
Children laugh and have fun with the stars and shadows while the sky is full of bright constellations, which look more like drawings. At camp, George discovered that the dark can be magical. Sometimes you just need to look at the stars and remember that friendship and courage are always by your side. Forest noise. It's the middle of the night while everyone is sleeping in the tents. The countryside is silent with the sky full of stars. George, still awake, stares at the roof of the tent, trying not to think about the dark around him. Suddenly, the sharp, frightening sound echoes across the field. George gets scared and runs to Peppa's tent, holding his stuffed dinosaur. Nervous says,
Peppa, there's something out there.
Peppa wakes up and, realizing her brother's fear, decides to call her friends. Susie and Pedro quickly appear, bringing their flashlights.
What happened, George? Why are you so scared?
I heard a strange sound. It sounded like a monster.
Don't worry, George. I bet it was just a forest animal.
Let's all go outside and see together. Then you will realize that there is nothing to fear.
With Madame Gazelle watching from afar, the children emerge from the tents, flashlights in hand. George stops, but Peppa holds his hand to encourage him. As they walk towards the sound, they find an owl perched on a branch, hooting softly. So she decides to go to the children and says,
Look, kids, it's just an owl. They love the night because they see very well in the dark. This is their habit, to fly at night and rest during the day.
The dark is like day to her. How incredible.
George watches the owl curiously, starting to relax. He looks up at the starry sky and notices how peaceful and magical everything around him is.
The owl isn't scary. It's pretty.
See, George, the dark has many special things, and we are all here with you.
The children point their flashlights at the sky, illuminating some trees. George starts laughing and joins them, then says Madame Gazelle,
Remember, kids, the dark may seem scary, but it also holds many wonders.
What do you mean, Madame Gazelle?
Many animals need the dark to hunt better and be able to feed, in addition to some having nocturnal habits.
Do they sleep during the day? How strange.
That's right, Pedro. They have different habits than ours, but that doesn't mean it's wrong.
As the children laugh and play, George looks up at the stars again and realizes that the dark isn't so scary anymore. He hugs his dinosaur and smiles, then throws it up, feeling braver with his friends by his side. The power of friendship. With the stars shining brightly, the children return to the tents. George, now more confident, holds Peppa's hand as they talk, with a smile on his face.
The dark isn't that scary. He has magical things, like the stars and the owl.
That's right, George. And whenever you are afraid, you can count on your friends.
Madame Gazelle, seeing that George has calmed down, gathers the children in a circle again. She speaks in a gentle voice while everyone looks up at the starry sky.
Today, children, we learned 2 very important things. First, the dark doesn't have to be scary. Sometimes it holds beautiful things, like the sky full of stars and the sounds of nature.
The children watch, paying attention. George hugs his dinosaur and looks up at the sky curiously.
And second, when we have friends by our side, it becomes much easier to face our fears.
And truth. When George got scared, we all helped him. I was once afraid of the dark, and my cousin helped me.
And now he's smiling. I think he even likes the dark.
George laughs shyly and shakes his head, looking up at the stars again, and imagining how much history the stars and constellations that live there have.
Yes, I like. The sky looks like a painting full of bright dots.
Well done, George. The stars teach us that, even in the dark, there is always something beautiful to see. And when we are far from city lights, like here in the countryside, we can see many more stars.
Why, Madame Gazelle? Do the city lights hide the stars?
Yes, Peppa. The light from the cities is so strong that it overshadows the stars. That's why in open places, like here in the countryside, the sky seems brighter and full of constellations.
Pointing to the sky, Susie says,
I see a drawing. Looks like a bear.
That's the constellation Ursa Minor. Susie, many constellations have ancient stories that people told by looking at the sky.
The children look at the sky, enchanted, trying to find different designs among the stars. Pedro Pony suddenly lets out a laugh, breaking the silence.
Look, the stars form a dinosaur. It's George's dino.
All the children laugh loudly, and George looks up at the sky in surprise.
A dinosaur? Rawr. The stars are incredible.
The children continue to laugh and play, pointing their flashlights at the ground and making funny shadows. Madame Gazelle watches everything with a loving smile, and it says,
The world is full of wonderful things, children. We just need to have the courage to look around us.
Today, Peppa, George, and their friends learned that the dark can be magical when we look carefully. And, most importantly, that friendship gives us courage to face any fear. The children enter the stalls with George smiling, confident and hugging his dinosaur. The light from the lanterns goes out, and the sound of children's laughter mixes with the soft chirping of crickets in the background. And George whispers to Peppa,
Good night, Peppa. Good night, stars.
Good evening, George. Sleep well.
With courage and the support of friends, even the dark can become something magical. There is always beauty in the world around us if we just look carefully. Sometimes fear seems bigger and makes situations extremely scary, and you just need a new look at the situation. If you enjoy Peppa's incredible universe, you know you're in the right place. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next videos, okay? We're leaving 2 really cool videos for you to explore a little more of Peppa's world with us. Until later.